3:07.
Mute is off, and we're going to go in 3, 2, 1, and hello, welcome to G3. I hope you found us again, if not for the first time. Hello. We're the ladies who love to talk tech, usually every week. This week our schedule got a little shifted around. Today is Tuesday, November 17th, 2015, and this is episode number 61. Before we start, I'd like to invite you to find our Facebook page at facebook.com/G3show and join us in our live chat. If you are seeing this live, of course, then it's a live chat at chat.center/G3. Before we start, I'd like to just say that our minds and our hearts have been with the people of Paris over the past number of days. We stand hand in hand with them and wipe our tears away and carry on because nothing will divide us. So I'd like to open us up today and say hello to my co-host, Rebecca Woodcock. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Tina.
You look warm. You look like you've got a little fuzzy. Oh, I like that. We're all wearing our scarves today because we have indeed had a shift in weather. Hello, Hallie Suit Tucker. You look all cozy.
28 degrees in Boston this morning.
Oh my gosh, it's starting.
And very windy.
And oops, I'm going to remove
Attack the dogs.
What's
Is that the doorbell?
I hear a
this. We're
monster.
going to say hello to Francine in a second.
Here.
But you can see that Francine's dogs are really excited to see us. Hello, Francine, and then I'm going to let you do whatever with the dogs. But hello.
And I'm going to mute you while I get rid of this dog.
Okay. So Francine's joining us today from Arizona, where she usually is. And in my lower right is the lovely Mary Hodder from Mountain View, California. Hi, Mary.
Hello.
You also are nice, bundled up in a beautiful black sort of, what is that, gathered scarf.
Gathered scarf. Yep.
You look cozy.
It's cold.
Okay. So ladies, hello. I know that Paris has been on our minds. We've been talking about it offline a bunch. And a few words to say, or you want to kind of jump into our...
I have a few words. I think we found out a lot of us had spent a lot of time together in Paris, or even met. And I would just say, Mary and I have certainly been together in Paris, making trouble and having fun and eating gigantic loaves of French bread and butter, crazy stuff.
Rebecca and I met in Paris.
And I met Christy there.
Oh, and Rebecca and I met in Paris.
Yeah, that was a really fun trip. We had a
was.
lot of good people there, right? We had a big group.
Yeah.
I remember Robert Scoble was there, Gabe Rivera from TechMeme.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Steve was there.
Yep.
Mike Arrington, and who else was it? We had a good group. That was fun.
It was a lot of fun. And
I got to know Loic better there.
I remember that from that trip, my proudest moment was that I got Mike Arrington to go on the public buses.
He was so happy that all he wanted was somebody to tell him what to do, and you fulfilled that for him. And so he was very, very happy about that, I remember.
I bossed him around and it worked, and I've never been able to replicate that since then, so.
We all, yeah.
Was that Le Blog or
Le Web? Yeah,
it was Le Web, yes.
Well, it was Le Blog before it was Le Web, and Mary and I went to the first one, right?
Yep.
Mary, was that the first
So
one?
now your microphone is too close to you, Hallie. And as I said before, this scarf is going to get lost because it's silk, and now I'm hot. I'm hot, and I can't have that. So so you can all look beautiful with your scarves on. I am Sans scarf.
It's 43 in Phoenix today.
It's what?
43.
43 in Phoenix.
Wow.
Good grief.
Chili.
You gave it to us from California.
Good grief. All right.
Yeah,
well,
that's true.
we are on to a different season apparently. So,
The
what's
first
been on your
Loeb-
minds, ladies? What's going on in the tech world? What's got you thinking?
Well, if you don't want to talk about terrorism, we can talk about Facebook Safe. I think that's really an important tool that Mark Zuckerberg launched. And everyone has been giving him shit because he didn't also do Beirut. But as he said, this was the first time we've ever turned it on. And we wanted to make sure that it was working right.
I think
And
it was actually turned on during a hurricane.
Well, I think
was that?
what Francine means is it's the first time it's been turned on for a non-natural disaster. So it's been used a lot for earthquakes, for hurricanes, but this is the first time that it's been used for a human disaster. And, especially in this situation, we didn't really know there was such a big trend going until now. And then now that we look back, we can see that Beirut and Paris, it's all part of the same trend. So I think it's a big move, and it's an important move. It's going to cause a lot of questions, a lot of problems for them. Like, when do you turn it on? When don't you turn it on?
Well, that was what Mark said. He said that a lot depends on the magnitude of the disaster. I know I have a lot of friends in Paris because I also have been at Le Web, and I marked this guy Euromaestro that I met at Le Web. He lives in Paris, and I marked him safe because I saw him on Facebook and no one else had done it. But the next day, he went out with Periscope, and he went to all the sites and conducted a Periscope tour and, visited all the shrines and everything. I thought that it was a pretty cool use of Periscope. In fact, the best, I think, that I've ever seen.
That's really interesting.
Didn't you find it reassuring, though, to see that a bunch of your friends were okay quickly?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, of course.
It was certainly very reassuring to me.
Absolutely. And to have a place to, like people were asking all these questions about Euromaestro because he's very social media active. So I was actually kind of lucky. I found him in my stream and I could mark him safe.
So, is it something that really has to be turned on for a particular event, or is it something that could just reside? And could it work the same way?
Well, that's an interesting question because there are different situations that maybe the current safety check is not built for. And Mark was very honest about that. It's currently built for situations where there's a definite beginning and an end to a scenario. So that doesn't include things like war or epidemics or, like even the Ebola crisis. But
or missing people's children.
So
Exactly.
so it's effective only when there's a 24-hour, 48-hour, 72 hours sort of
in its current state, yes, the way it's been built. But that then begs the question, and maybe they're already thinking about this, are there ways to build something like Safety Check, or maybe it's a different product that works a little bit differently that can be used in other scenarios? I don't know what that looks like, but it's definitely not the current product that they have. Maybe they're thinking about something different.
But when a platform's as big as Facebook is and as global as Facebook is, it has kind of a responsibility to assume that function. Because people, because it's social and it's huge, people are going to go there looking for news. So it would be great if you could provide it. I just wonder whether there's any merit in providing information about, people who are in car accidents, people who are in plane crashes. it seems to me that Facebook could get buried in providing that kind of information about what I hate to use the term routine disasters.
Right. I liked it especially because I think about all of you guys and like,
Huh? Sorry, we had a little delay in hearing, but so Hallie and Mary were starting to talk at once. Let me ask Mary to jump in because we haven't really heard from her much. Mary?
I was just going to say the other thing is that when people have a personal disaster, I think it's really more appropriate to let them share about it versus having the community say, oh, this person's safe. I know that they've been in a car accident. Well, do they want to tell everyone that they were in a car accident right at this moment? I mean, it's kind of, it should be the individual's choice whether to say it. I mean, when I saw the SAFE thing come up initially, I wasn't really sure what it was, right? It started coming up, especially like this one friend in Paris, Mark Goldberg, and he lives in the neighborhood that was there. And he was having dinner for Shabbat at somebody else's house in another neighborhood. And he and his family ended up spending the night at their house instead of going home. So that was kind of nice to see. But also he just posted it. You know, it was like, there, I mean, the SAFE thing seems fine, but then you have to ask, what's it about? Well, if it's about, you know, bombings in Paris, that makes more sense, and that's way beyond his, you know, just his own personal experience. But if it was a car accident or something, or some, yeah, I don't know, his building collapsed or something, I mean, that's a little weird. It's like, let the person say what they want to say. You know?
Yeah, because then you do get into the get ready for this, Mary, privacy issues.
right. No, I was going to.
Privacy.
I hope we're going to talk a little
about
privacy.
personal data control, right? So you just want people to have control over their own experience and their own data and what they share, and you know.
Hallie?
Which
I was just
I
going to
guess
say,
can be.
it seems one of the results of, it's similar to post 9/11 of the tragedy in Paris is there, it feels to me, I would call it like a land grab for, okay, here go more of our freedoms and here goes more of our privacy. And I don't know, it just feels a little nerve-wracking. It's certainly, did you guys all think, I'm so glad certain people may not currently be president? Because with the whole cast of 800 potential new presidents, I went through them quickly going, glad he's not president, as we redefine how much privacy and how much surveillance is going to be part of our daily diet, so to speak.
Well, in the
Actually,
UK,
I've read a
my
great-
daughter's
We're so
Sorry.
good at just like starting
Jumping in.
two people starting to talk again. Go ahead, Mary, and then we'll get to Francine.
I was just going to say, I saw an article yesterday that I thought was great that talked about the public's kind of reformulating of who they're supporting for president because of Paris attacks. That Beirut, it's basically a lot of people who seemed like they might be fun to have the president.
Right.
Now they're just completely off the, you know, they're so totally off the mark with foreign policy, and they don't know or have experience or have a plan that that they just, you know, all of a sudden they seemed really trivial in the election. Yeah.
well,
And
that's
it,
one
it,
right
it becomes
there.
pretty clear that maybe now is not the time to have an outsider who's got no experience.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so. I know
think so. I
Have
found
you
that the Hillary
seen polling?
debate.
Have you seen
Just about.
polling that says that that's true, Mary? What makes you say that?
The article, I can go back and try to find the article and put it on the chat center, but it was, I want to say it was maybe yesterday, and it might have been an Anchor Forbes or something, but they were talking about how the poll numbers, because I guess Trump's poll numbers are declining, and they were declining before the Paris thing, but they took a real dive in the last week because of this, or the last few days. Partly because people are like, well, okay, it might have been fun to have him as president, but totally unrealistic. So, you know, anyway.
You know, yeah.
So let me
I
see if
mean,
I can find it.
For comic relief, fantastic. For the late night
Right.
talk shows, terrific.
Yeah, a lot of fodder.
For yeah.
Let's go back to the privacy, you know, versus safety thing. My daughter lives in London, and on Monday morning when her child goes to a French school, so She posted on Facebook that there were London police guarding her child's French school, and she was really happy to see it. I don't know that there's necessarily a privacy piece to it, but
Right.
I think we're going to get used to a lot more police presence, which means probably a lot more surveillance.
Yeah, I remember very much when I first went to France as a student, I was stopped on the street and somebody said to me, "Vos papiers, mademoiselle." And I'm like, "Vos papiers, what's that?" And I knew it meant paper, but like, was he actually asking me for my ID, my passport, and he was. And I remember thinking, but this is a while ago too, that was so weird. Like, who does that? Who would do that in the U.S.? They also had people on the street telling me, "Mademoiselle, don't whistle. We don't whistle on the street here."
Well, if you're
Okay.
Hispanic, people do that in the U.S. all the time, by the way.
What, whistle or get carded, essentially?
Get carded.
Yep.
In Arizona, of course, the
Definitely.
redneck state, we constantly are having issues about that. Because people are we passed a law that turned out to be, thank God, unconstitutional, asking that if a policeman pulls somebody over, they could ask them for their papers.
Well, I was a little bit creeped out. My mother lives in a gated community, and I went to her home, and this was kind of a new thing, and they asked to see your driver's license.
Yep.
And I was like, really? So they're asking everyone at the gate for their driver's license, and basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to keep out illegal workers who don't have driver's license. And I found that disturbing.
Well, but could it be for other reasons?
No.
I mean, for example, if the community is older, there could be contractors who are coming in and trying to prey on them. So we just got an email on our neighborhood list about a woman who's 93 who lives 2 blocks away, and the next door neighbor who's much younger just had found out that she'd signed a contract for like 35 grand to do about $2,000 worth of sewer work. And, so the thing is that there are contractors who prey on people who are older and financial, you might call them, people who are supposed to be helping, whatever, but they're actually preying on people who are older. And maybe the driver's license check is a deterrent, because if they're showing up every day trying to do stuff, I mean, if it's a community for people who are older, I think that would be kind of a nice deterrent. But
it's
you're
not,
right. I mean,
it's not, and I don't think that that's what they're doing.
Were you
the
talking about
question that
seniors
I have
getting
is, are they
scammed?
recording? If they're recording the driver's license, that's an issue. And if they're swiping it, there's a lot of data that comes off the mag strip. So like birthday, address. And if they're collecting that and keeping it, that's really a problem. But if they're just looking at it and kind of tracking like who's coming in every day, I mean, it's a gated community. My issue is, are they violating people's privacy? But just knowing who's coming and going when you have a guard gate, I mean, it's private property.
But Mary, you put up that article from NBC News about what ISIS is using. ISIS is using things that protect their privacy. I thought that was the most amazing video and the most amazing article, because they're using WeChat and WhatsApp. And,
Actually, Rebecca put it up.
Oh, okay, Rebecca, sorry. But they're using, PlayStation and all kinds of encrypted tools. And they have a help desk that teaches all the jihadists how to use all these tools. So we're opening up everything on our end, and they're closing down everything on theirs.
Well, the the issue that I have with what they're doing and all of this is why. So we keep trying to attack this problem on a surveillance and encryption level. Like let's weaken encryption, like what the NSA was just reported to have done with the NIST encryption standards, which by the way are used by the government and businesses. So when Chinese hackers break in and steal all the names, addresses, and social security numbers of all the federal employees, they're probably using that standard. So it probably made it really easy for the Chinese to hack in, right? So we have that version of this. And then, of course, the NSA wants to just sort of track everyone in a blanket manner. The thing that I think about is, 20, 30 years ago, everyone was dark. So when the NBC article says, ooh, these guys are going dark, it's like, well, we were all dark 20 years ago.
Right.
And they had to do good old-fashioned police work to find out who was doing what. And actually, in all the instances, apparently, of tracking down terrorists in advance and thwarting attacks, it has been because of that style of police work where you actually do the on the street grunt work, not because they were tracking billions and billions of daily communications and ferreting out the one needle in the haystack that tipped them off. Because yes, of course those guys are, the actual terrorists are not going to use, they're not going to put a post up on Facebook, hey, next week everybody event Paris at the theater,
Flash
let's
mob.
get there
Don't
with our
miss it.
machine guns. No one does that, right? And so
yeah, and
the
what I
thing is that
go ahead. Sorry.
well, just the last piece. I mean, basically, they're going to use tools that will keep them dark because they can. But if we haven't, if we decrypt everything or we make everything public, then they're just going to go use a different set of tools. I mean, they're not stupid. I mean, the issue is we actually have to deal with the systemic problems that underlie why would they want to be terrorists in the first place. Okay, we have massive climate change that's, we don't have enough water in the Middle East. It's causing displacement of people. Then they move around and the tribes get messed up. Then they get mad. Then a few extremists put a story out that it's all the West's fault. Then, those few extremists want to attack. Well, why don't we deal with our climate change issues? And why don't we deal with our diplomatic issues in a better way where we're not like the parents spanking the little bad children? Because when we treat them that way, they also get pissed off. If we dealt with some of that, we probably wouldn't have this issue, and then we wouldn't have to be doing massive surveillance all over the place in quite the way that, the NSA claims they have to do.
I didn't even realize this is how little we know as Americans.
For people who didn't want to get into this, we're certainly gotten into this.
We're talking about
I kind of
tech companies.
I sort of
right?
kind of like to pull this back a little bit. Hallie, you were holding something up. Will that save us?
Quickly, I think Mary was talking about seniors being scammed when you were talking about the gated community. Was that right?
Yeah.
Or because it was the cover on the Consumer Reports this month. And you guys, if you want to subscribe to anything or give a gift at Christmas, it's a really good thing to get because they do really amazing stuff. This says a crying shame: seniors and their families lose $3 billion a year to con artists, and they just have a lot of interesting stuff that's way beyond just like what's the best TV this month. And
seniors have been losing money to stockbrokers for years. So what's the diff?
Well, it's not written now, not just seniors, but that basically everybody's retirement.
Yeah. So, but here's another thing that happened this week, which is that the crowdfunding rules, speaking of taking money away from people, the crowdfunding rules have finally been finalized by the SEC. Yeah. And this morning, I got my first notice of somebody I know who's doing an equity crowdfunding campaign. And the person that I know who's doing it happens to have a patent and a good product. But how would a stranger coming to an equity crowdfunding site know that? You know what I'm saying? I don't understand how you decide to invest in a product on a crowdfunding site. I understand Indiegogo and Kickstarter because nobody expects anything back. But
do you mean sites like AngelList or Funders Club?
No, there's one called Fundable and there's one called EquityNet. These are, and there will soon be 50 of them. because there are all these platforms have been waiting to launch that give you nothing back. You know,
Right.
it's a real investment. Up until now, on the Kickstarter and the Indiegogo, you had a chance if they made their goal of getting your product, although some people
Yep.
didn't. But now it's going to be more than, oh, I'm pre-buying this product. It's going to be, I'm going to try to fund this company, and that requires a hell of a lot more due diligence typically than a website can, and there'll be a lot of, it's going to be like major amateur hour.
Well, and that is one thing when it's selling rubber ducks or something, or mugs with a picture of something on it. But when it's whether you're an accredited investor, and they will not need that, right? You will not be asked, "Are you making X per year?" and "Do you have? Is this essentially money you can lose?"
Well, I discovered something interesting when I went to both of those sites. One of them, when you sign up as an investor, which I did, one of them asks you the rules that they're supposed to ask you for accredited investors. Do you make
Right.
over $200,000 a year? Or,
Yeah.
Are you worth the net worth of $2 million? You know, those kinds of questions. The other one didn't even ask.
That's surprising. And
Yeah.
that
Well, I think the new rules are that they can accept investors who are accredited and according to
Right.
that standard.
Right. But
So
there's-
that's the change.
Right, but you have to
Right.
tell them how much you make. In theory, you have to tell them how much you make, and it's something like 5% of that is all the government allows you to invest per year. I looked into it, you know, at the very beginning, but it's been so long since the guidelines were finalized that I don't remember as much as I at one time knew about what the regs were. But I think you're right, Mary, that you don't have to be an accredited investor anymore.
don't.
But I
Yeah.
think there is a limit on how much you can invest, and it's on a sliding scale according to income, because the goal is not to make people go broke.
But yeah, I think there is a point there. Like, how do you police or monitor or prevent incorrect investments from happening? And is it the responsibility of the website to help filter those out, knowing that there are still rules? Yes,
Right.
they've opened up, but the average person may not understand. And like you said, because it's going to be amateur hour, and it will be, it's going to be a little bit more like the stock market.
Well, it's going to be the same
then-
thing like seniors. You know, I mean, who sits on computers all day long? You know, a lot of them are seniors.
well, as for investing,
I'm such an ageist stereotyper, but I have to say now I'm 74. So let's not think that I'm really prejudiced against seniors. But I am saying that you could sit on the computer and find all these crowdfunding platforms and make investments that you can't afford to make with money you can't afford to lose.
That's true.
Well,
And you don't
they allow you to
accurately
do that
know the risks.
they allow you to do that as a gambler in Vegas.
Yep. Hey, speaking of
But part of
gambling
the-
and not Vegas, I thought the article I think Mary posted and brought us all to read about was Sequoia, the well-known VC, has this kind of underground network of people that they hand money to invest in startups, sort of, so they won't miss the next big thing. Is that a correct description?
It's a correct description, but I got to say that Sarah Lacey isn't getting the credit she would, because Pando broke that story 2 years ago.
Right.
And now, you know,
Interesting.
yeah, so
Well-
now I guess
So it's
Rico
sort
did
of
it, or the Verge did it, and the Verge did it, because I knew about that. I had read it before.
So it's resurfaced.
Interesting.
And people
Yeah.
are talking about that again.
Well, it's how VCs get to invest in startups without really associating their name.
Without calling attention to themselves. But is this
Right.
a
So
practice?
someone explain to the audience what it is.
Yeah.
This
Mary,
network.
Mary, you gotta do that?
Mary?
Well, so sure. So basically, first of all, context, which I don't think they really address so much in the article, Sequoia is considered to be the number one VC firm, the last few years. So when Sequoia invests, it's a big deal, right? First of all, they put all of their investments on their website. The company puts it on the company's website. TechCrunch and everybody else, or Crunchbase, lists it as, Sequoia has invested in this company. So it's very public, it's very known, and it changes what's going on because of the perceptions of who Sequoia is and what partner and going on. So the thing that Sequoia has been doing apparently, or is trying to do, except that there's a chart in the Wall Street Journal article, which we can stick in the chat center. But basically, they have hired people, or probably, I'm guessing, it's more of an arrangement where they partner. So they give them money to invest, and then they give them a portion of the return, just like you would do with a venture capitalist. So
I wonder how much of that is going on AngelList.
Well, we don't really know. That's the thing.
Exactly.
It's secretive. And so the thing is that in a traditional venture capital relationship, you have LPs that put money into the fund, and the venture capital firm, Sequoia or anybody else, goes out and places these bets, right? And then they sit on the board and they interact with the company. And so in this instance, these are much smaller bets, which probably the VCs can't deal with because they're so little and they have so much else to do. And so then they
move quickly because they're so big and bureaucratic too. So
there's that
sorry
too.
To interrupt.
So basically, what they do is they ask someone like Jason
And what you said
or
was so
somebody
little
else.
is that the companies that they're investing in are so small. Is that right?
Well, and the amounts
They're
they're
small.
the
Amount.
amounts.
small
the amounts
amounts
are little.
small amounts of
25K.
dollars.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like 25K, 50K, whatever.
Mhm.
So
Just
then
enough
the
so that
thing
if
is
the company's successful, you get notified.
right.
and you can invest in the
but
next
if
round.
Sequoia put money in at that early stage, it might also put sort of an undue amount of pressure on the company to, Sequoia thinks they're going to be successful. First of all, other people would probably want to come and invest. And second of all, it might in that early, because when you take angel money in that lower amount, you're in the prototyping phase. You're trying to figure out, how do you make this product resonate with this audience? And so they probably don't want to tip that, audience or the press off to the investment. Okay, that all makes sense. But what it also did was confer a lot of status onto people who really didn't personally have money to invest. And then those people kind of go around and say, hey, I'm an angel investor. I'm Brian Sugar. I'm Jason Kalkinis. I'm whomever. And basically it looks like they're doing more than those people really have the ability to do. And to the point that Francine made earlier
Which
about,
sort of boosts
like
their
seniors,
status in the
Which
in the
boosts
community.
their
status.
That's right.
It's a bit dishonest. And the thing that you wonder is, okay, so now couple that together with this crowdfunding notion of like, oh, we don't need accredited investors. Mm-hmm. So that same company puts their stuff up on, I don't know, the crowdfunding site. And who's to know when one or another angel invests, what kind of credibility that confers or what it means. But I do think that people look at stuff like that and they say, oh, well, I'm not really going to do my due diligence investing, that I invested, I'll just invest too. And so it becomes this pile-on of like the clique of who's most popular and whatever. And it's not, in other words, you're not necessarily investing on what's a good investment and what's a good team and all of that. It really sways the whole balance.
Hallie?
Isn't it so often, though, that these things are so inside anyway? And I would just say add to exactly what you said, Mary. Not only is it as if they've been knighted and made special, if Sequoia says but in the next round, if Sequoia doesn't invest, that looks bad, right? Mm-hmm. And of the list of 78 that was in the Wall Street Journal, there were 78 of these scouts with, 73 men, 5 women, once again. So are all these insiders back to making sure the money is neatly circulating in all men's startups?
Yeah, it's the same old. It's the same old opaque insider trading that always is venture capital and Silicon Valley.
Right.
And in the South, we always call that the old boys network.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's true. It is the old boys network.
It's that everywhere, right?
I'm pretty sure the Yanks say the same thing.
Right. So I mean, so on the one hand, I mean, we see some pros, I guess, for the investment firms. There's obviously some reasons to do this.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of this
Deal
is not
flow.
a
Look how much more
transparent
deal
sort of
flow they get
situation.
if they do
Of
it.
course. I also saw last week, did you see there was a podcast by Kara Swisher with, who's the head guy at Sequoia? I mean, he's like,
Mike Moritz.
Roloff, Bota.
I don't
No,
remember.
Mike
One of
Moritz.
them. And did one of them wrote the thing about the unicorns all dying, had that dead unicorn on the snow picture.
Oh yeah.
Well, that Mike Moritz, who I don't think
That's-
is any longer a partner, but he still has partnership
that's who
revenues and
Kara
stuff from
interviewed.
old investments. What?
That's who Kara interviewed.
Yeah. But again, I'm like, there you go. You have another old school white guy interviewed. And I'm like, could you have some more women that you interview? I mean, it's all these places. It's like a rat maze where you bang your head against the wall if you're a woman entrepreneur. It's
Well,
frustrating.
But if women aren't there,
Yes and no, but I have to push back on that a little bit. Mike Moritz is brilliant.
Is he a great Okay.
And he is really sharp and no bullshit. And the thing is that when he, to interview him, first of all, he's not active right now, and
Okay.
he's not interested in being, I think, too involved in all this. So to get him to interview him is a
It's
big deal.
Well,
And
go look at
he's
their
really
site,
sharp.
though.
I also
would-
want to point out that when Silicon Valley Forum gave their annual awards to Kara Swisher, they also that same year did it for Mike Moritz, and
Okay.
so I remember seeing them both. It was actually it was held in Heidi Roizen's backyard. Talk about your insider
Not
baseball.
inside, right? God. So, but I
And
go
see,
to
that's,
their
I think,
site,
how
and I go
Kara
look
got
at-
that interview.
Look at Moritz. Look at Sequoia's site, Our Team. It's 15 men and one woman at the very end, too. It's just like never
Yeah.
stops. I mean, so it's just frustrating.
But it doesn't do us any good to talk about it and gripe and grumble about it every week,
Okay, I'll never talk about it again.
Well, I mean, I think the problem is that our system is messed up, and so the specific, one guy to the next, or this list, the Wall Street Journal list, where it's 5 women, I don't know, 75 or how many did you say? It says 105 entries. So
They could verify
so-
78, and they verified that
Okay,
73 were men and 5 were women.
Okay. So the thing is yeah, that looks like every tech conference speaker list and all sorts of things.
Right.
But I don't think we really fix our gender issues until we fix some, the larger systemic things. So just to go after, one person, I mean, I kind of agree with Francine. It's not so
Well,
constructive.
I've been doing some
You know what I
research on
mean?
the idea
but
that,
it's frustrating.
so you know how people
But
get
it is
jobs
really frustrating. I totally
people-
agree.
People get jobs because people recommend friends for jobs. In this economy, you've been reading a lot about the software that sorts people out. Tara has been writing about that, Tara Hunt, that she got a job where, this is a few jobs ago, where the person in HR is like, wow, great, how did you get here? And she had sent her resume, and the HR lady, and she looked at it together online and saw she'd been thrown out. But a friend of hers worked there and brought her in. That's how she got in. So I've been looking around to see, do you think that most men recommend other men for jobs, or do you think most men bring in their male friends for jobs? And that there's this is really hard to get any numbers on or any research on, and there's anecdotal information, but I'm looking for any.
But isn't that really
Well,
similar? I mean, bringing
yeah,
your male
they-
friend in versus recommending, outside. I mean, it's a similar process. So I have to roll us back to 2005 when Kevin Marks and I did this look at Technorati data for inbound links. So this is bloggers who's linking to whom.
Right.
And the thing that we looked at was the conversational middle. So tons of people link to Boing Boing, right? they're at the top, they're broadcast effectively. They link very little out compared to the amount of inbound links. But when you look at that middle section where people have, 50, 100, 150 inbound links in the last 30 days, and they have the same number going out because they're blogging every day. Okay, I know no one does this anymore, but that's what people did at the time, right? We all blogged every day. So the thing is and you'd link one or two or three links in a post, right? So we did this analysis, and what we found was that most of the time it was men linking to men, and they didn't link very often out to women, and that was one of the things that we found. But what's interesting about that is I think you have to look at, like, what is it that men get when they recommend each other for a job, when they pat each other on the back, when they publicly say kudos, when they link, all these different ways of expressing status and conferring status from
Same
one
thing
person
Jason
to another.
Calacanis gets when he takes Sequoia's, money to be a scout, and then claims that he angel invested in all of these companies.
Right.
They get
That's
prestige, status, testosterone, and it's
And he's
here
not
I-
the only one.
doing
dick
it?
waving.
Why are they doing it with each other versus why aren't they including more women? And I think one of the reasons is because the way that women interact, and this is just my own theory, but the way that women interact with each other, we make, I think, traditionally, we have made stronger ties and then continue to reinforce our stronger ties. Men will reinforce weaker ties, and that confers status. So everybody knows who everyone's inner circle is. Like if you're in business, like the Sequoia Group, they're an inner circle, right? So that no one partner is going to confer status onto another because they're already partners at Sequoias, right? But if
Clive
a
Bolton
partner
in the
at
chat room
Sequoia,
just said that Jason Calacanis is the Trump of angels. I think there's a lot,
but I mean, if you,
of merit to that comment.
if you're conferring status, to somebody who is a more weak tie, then they're more likely to confer it to you. And that pattern of conferring status, like if we only confer it to our inner circle, we're losing the opportunity to do it. And I think a lot of men instinctively, without thinking, look at women and they're like, oh, I'm not going to get status conferred back, but if I go over here to this guy and I confer status on him, he'll confer some back.
That
Comes, I think, from the male training in athletics. I actually think that in some ways men are trained to be team players where women are not, and that goes way back into athletics. And women are much bigger actual team players, but the kind of thing, that bro thing is specifically male.
Well, there's another part which nobody ever wants to agree with me on this, so I'll just throw it right out here, which is that at a time, this falling off of girls at their 12 years, 13, 14-year-old time phase, which is an adolescence, that it's been documented everywhere that girls are like, I don't know if I want to be in that group of like smelly geek guys, all this stuff. They're actually at a time, if you want to go
speaking
really,
about math and science? Is that what you're particularly speaking of?
They
or
don't
academics in general?
One
Or
of the
what?
big
No,
steps-
they don't even raise their hands in class anymore.
Right.
There is a book called,
Hang on.
it's Raising Ophelia about that.
Yeah, that's a really good book. But all I was going to say is, if you want to go right back to testosterone, like really basic caveman scenario, that's the time where women realize I'm picking a male partner and I'm competing against other women to get a strong partner. That's how I create power for me in this patriarchy. Sorry to say. So we are at a point where we could cooperate and promote each other. We're taught to compete against each other.
And I sort of a twist on what Mary was saying. I think that men more often have this expectation that if they do a favor will be returned. And women, I don't think, have that expectation. They often favor.
'Cause it
they
doesn't
often
happen.
do
We do
things
favors
for
for
and they
everybody.
often give and help and actually do that without the expectation that it's going to come back to them. And I think that sort of sets up this this situation. So when you're in this environment, the men are expecting it to come back to them, and it does.
Right.
The women do, and it is sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It does not, because
Well,
there isn't
often-
that expectation that it's going to happen.
Well, you're talking not just a favor, you're talking about power. And if other men, could be powerful and give a benefit to another man, a man is going to invest socially in the powerful person. And typically women have not been powerful.
So I think part of it is figuring out, for a lot of women, I think it takes a long time for us to figure out how to aggregate power. And where men, because of the team sports and other things, they get trained very early on about how to aggregate power, right? And so they're off doing it. They're decades ahead of when women figure that out. And not all women do figure it out, but the women that do often figure it out much later in life. And it really shifts. So the thing is the other question is, so if you have some attention, right, some link, some recommendation, some, hey, come in for this job, power to confer.
Right.
Who are you going to do it with? Are you going to do it with somebody who's already got some power that confer it back to you,
Right.
or someone who's powerless that you perceive as powerless, who can't really confer much power back to you, right? And so it becomes this sort of catch-22, I think, for women, where it's like, how do you do it? We in the way we socialize as girls and teenagers, we don't learn how to do it, and then we're fumbling around, and it takes 20 more years to figure out, like, we need to do this thing, and then you got to get in the game and start aggregating it.
I think women will often fall into the trap of doing something for someone who's just going to be nice to them.
I was a big fish in a small pond in Phoenix, and I very quickly aggregated quite a bit of power. And once I became powerful, I discovered that I was feared and hated. And that wasn't really where I wanted to be at all. So I gradually sort of switched around my image and tried to, get rid of the power thing so that people didn't perceive me as so off-putting. Because when you are a woman and you aggregate power, you make people very
Really?
uncomfortable and
Right.
very angry, and then they try and subvert you.
So yeah, can I make a comment on that?
Please
Because
do.
I'm listening to all of this, and actually my experience in the business context traditionally has been very much of like the crab in the bucket kind of mentality, and that's sort of a little bit what Francine is alluding to. In the business context, I think women have been so scarce in powerful positions that it has been threatening for anyone to rise the ranks, because that means if they're rising the ranks, then there's no room for us. And so I've seen a lot of behavior that have actually been pulling people down. And only recently have I seen, especially with the start of Women 2.0 and Girls in Tech, actually encouraging each other. But in a lot of places and a lot of industries, this pulling people down because there's no room for all of us is still very much real.
Well,
And
that's when tokenism is alive and well, right?
Right.
Well,
and
and that's why you get only one, amongst.
There's one slot. She got it.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
stand down.
And so people,
No chance.
people, I mean, I don't know. That's why I think it's hard for us to aggregate power, because there are people still there that are trying to pull the ones that are climbing down.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, don't you think at our most powerful
Sorry,
time
I
of
have to
life, male
mute
and
for a second.
female, our most powerful time of life of work is between, I'd say, like 25 and 45, right? Should we say that? Anybody know what women are doing between 25 and 45?
Yeah.
A lot of them are having babies.
Sure.
A
And
lot
raising
of
children.
we're still back to the child care issue. You saw the article came out recently. Men are doing more work and sharing more work in families and at home, but in fact, believe they're doing a lot more than they actually are doing. So did you see that? Which is, one of those, oh, great. Like, men also think they're experts on subjects where women are like, ooh, I don't really know enough about that to speak at a conference. Or, it's back and forth with the let's just go for it. So again, with what Mary had said about, would you invest in somebody who might be like shy about promoting you because they're female? Or would you invest in a guy who's going to like brag about you while he's bragging about himself, while he's bragging about his new book, while he's bragging about the company he works for? Like I get pretty tired of hearing it. So we have a natural reticence to be promoting ourselves and promoting others, because it's been proven when we do, as Francine said, there's a lot of research that if you have power or you speak out as a woman, you get smacked down.
Well, I learned that because what I had, I was in the public relations and marketing business for 20 years. And that's how I aggregated so much power because, I had the ears of the press and I had powerful clients. And that's where people did start trying to pull me down. And, it's very unnerving, disturbing,
unsettling.
And also saddening. I ended up more than anything else being made sad by it, more like, can't you understand that I'm just a human being like you are?
Yeah. And the ironic part, who is biggest at promoting startup CEOs and companies? Female
Women.
PR people are paid to do it. So why is it, if we all just stopped promoting guy companies and use that power to promote women's companies, and who's with the gender equality pay gap? Who knows the salary in every freaking company? Some woman in HR is cheating the other women in the company. So that to me leaves me like, about how is that women, I mean, have we
now you've got some companies like Salesforce who are committed to putting their money where their mouth is and actually treating women equally in the pay department. How nice.
Well,
by the way, I read an interesting post by Paul Graham yesterday about Jessica Livingston and her role in Y Combinator. And this goes exactly to what we're talking about, because when people think Y Combinator, they think Paul Graham. He finally wrote this post the other day that said, hey, it wasn't me. The real operational person was Jessica. Right. And she's really the one who made it what it is.
But obviously knew she needed to keep, lie low and not have a high profile.
Or she chose to be that way.
True.
That was her,
well,
that's what her personality.
That she's
I don't know.
She's very shy.
Yeah. Okay, so that would dovetail with that personality type.
I've noticed lately, I keep going to businesses where I'm only dealing with women. When I was in California, I rented a car, and all the people in the car rental place were women. They were like, it was weird. I know maybe I'm a little biased, but they were like, hey, how you doing? And blah, 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 and super friendly and helpful. And I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, oh my God, this is like all women. I keep going places and finding, wow, I like doing business with women. There's a bunch of women in the Silicon Valley Bank branch of Boston. They redid the whole idea about how you interface with entrepreneurs. They wanted to have parties where women entrepreneurs be having fun. They threw this party that was so incredibly fun. Lots of women there. And I'm like, wow, this is, I mean, it was shockingly pleasant to have women be in positions of power and making decisions. Really, it's been lately. I mean, I feel very optimistic about that when I'm seeing that more and more. And I don't know, it just feels so natural. It's incredible.
We have a costume change. And
yeah, apparently. Is it scarves on or off?
I don't know, but Rebecca's got a nice, like what is that? What type of fabric is that? No, you just cut your mic off. You muted yourself.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this nice like sheer thing.
Look at that. This is high tech, people. This is our high tech filters. Yes. There we go.
Where's the music coming from?
Are we?
I was having my clock here.
Oh, it's Hallie's clock.
Oh, it's
not
Hallie's
music.
clock.
It's a clock.
It's the clock is turning 4 o'clock, so.
Oh, well, if the clock is turning 4 o'clock on the East Coast, that means it's turning 1 o'clock here.
That means it's turning dark.
We're getting sort of near the end of our show, or this episode, this 61st episode. Yes. Oh, Hallie's got the time right there. Let's get a nice. This will be a nice cutaway for me. Okay.
Started at 7 after.
And except now your mic is completely buried. Oh, you unplugged yourself. Lovely. All right. We'll let Hallie
Women
plug
and
herself back in.
technology.
What else do we need? Do we need to cover anything else, ladies?
Can I just mention, going
Yes, please.
back, a really interesting article that I read, if people want to see how actually the anonymous group, you know, the vigilante hackers, if you will, have been actually deterring a lot of ISIS efforts online all along. It was published by a website called foreignpolicy.com, and it was a really detailed investigative report on all the things that they're doing, and it's really, really fascinating. So anyone who's interested in that, I know, you know, when they declared vengeance the other day, I thought, well, didn't they do that before? And actually, they've been doing a lot. So that was a really interesting read for anyone who wants to read that.
Well, if you'd like, put a link to it on our page.
Sure.
I actually posted it too.
Hey, we're on our
I
show. I'll
subscribe-
call you back.
Foreign policy is actually a great. It
Hallie's
started up
taking
as a
phone calls.
magazine.
I used to read Foreign Policy magazine when it was just a magazine.
Yeah, it's
Oh, wow.
a well-known source.
Sorry, Mary, I
So
kind of cut
can
you off there.
subscribe- I was going to say you can subscribe to the daily foreign policy email where they'll post, you know, it's like the Medium email or the whatever email where they post every day a few interesting articles, and this came up in the mailing. And I would totally recommend that. I think it's really good. It's actually really nice for getting a perspective on foreign news that you just don't get in the rest of the media.
Yeah, I'd like a link to that.
Hey,
All right,
so we
thank
should
you.
say goodbye, but tell me some happy things that happened this week. I'll tell you my happy thing.
Okay.
I have now started a whole set of neighborhood parties. I invite everybody on our 2 or 3 streets right around here over to my house. Like once it's a Sunday, 4 to 6, and I just did one on this Sunday, 2 days after the Paris event, which was pretty much of a drag, and it was really fun to have all the neighbors come over. We do it because for snow, we want to be sure everybody's safe, right? I started last year with the snow, but what was really funny is there's all these new neighbors with tons of kids. So they had all these babies they brought over. So I'm like, whoa, cool. And there are people moving from Seattle and a lot of people moving from the West Coast to do biotech here. So that was interesting.
Fun. Anyone else with some fun over the weekend? Or were you all just not having fun over the weekend?
I grabbed lunch in Sausalito yesterday. It was a beautiful day after the rain clouds cleared out in the morning, and it was windy.
Did you
but in
ferry over
Sausalito-
there?
No, we drove over the bridge, but it was beautiful. And because it was so windy yesterday, you know, Sausalito is a little bit protected from the wind that comes off the shore and from the north. So it was just really beautiful.
It was a windy, blustery day here. We woke up to
Where you are.
whitecaps.
I went to the movies. I saw this movie Trumbo about Dalton Trumbo, who was one of the Hollywood 10. And I actually knew him when I was young and married to somebody else. That somebody else was a friend of Dalton Trumbo's son. And so I actually went to LA and met Dalton Trumbo.
You're talking
who
about
was,
the 50s, right? And the McCarthy.
This would be the 60s.
Oh, this is
So
60s. Okay.
it was because the blacklist was over in 1958 when Otto Preminger hired Dalton Trumbo openly to write Exodus. Trumbo wrote a bunch of, he was one of the Hollywood 10, which means that he refused to testify as to which one of his friends were communists. And so he got blacklisted for about 10 years. And he wrote all these movie scripts that won Academy Awards under assumed names.
I can't wait to see that. Was it good?
Well, it's very interesting. It's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Lots of
For me,
spotlights
it's
out.
wonderful. You know, like when you guys all see the Steve Jobs movie and can comment about whether it was or wasn't,
Yeah.
true. That's how I feel about the Dalton Trumbo movie. And from what I remember, this movie was very accurate.
That's cool.
My husband's father wrote a book about the McCarthy hearings called Fear the Accuser. So you can check that out.
Also,
That's
the
our
Boston
connection.
Globe discovery of the priest scandal, the what do you want to call it, that they were abusing children, is the new movie Spotlight. And Spotlight has Michael Keaton. It's supposed to be very good. And it was in sort of 3 theaters last weekend. It's going to be in a lot of theaters starting this weekend.
Still in pre-release, I think. And Trumbo is already out.
Trumbo's
Why?
already out, but I think it's in a limited number of theaters anyway.
Yeah, I don't think I even saw it at our theater in San Francisco. I usually check every week to see what movies are going on. We
Well,
like to
I
hit
was
the theaters.
particularly watching for this one since,
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to see it. But there are a number of, we're getting closer to the Academy Awards, so there are a number of good movies out now.
That are
This
gonna
is
be
when I
released
try
right
and
before.
see everything that's going to get nominated for an Academy Award. So
And
I'm
that-
sitting in the dark.
And that's something that the people who want their movies really to be looked at for Academy Awards like to release it close to the Academy Awards time so that it's still in your mind and in your head.
Right.
Hey, Mary, what'd you do that's fun?
This weekend?
Yeah.
No fun. Mary had no fun.
Actually, we did. We took Sunday and we had a spa day because after all the work on Anina's show, and so we went to the Scarlett Huntington in San Francisco, which has that beautiful pool with the view out the back and whirlpool and stuff. And we got pedicures and had lunch by the pool, which was
Nice.
Aw.
that was really fun. We spent the afternoon there just kind of looking out and, gorgeous day, gorgeous view, but we were in that atrium, so we didn't have to deal with the wind. It was very nice.
Sounds great. Woo!
Yeah, it was really good.
I don't think I had any fun over the
Oh,
weekend.
Tina,
so.
go on. You had some fun. You
I
must have done
didn't. I
something.
didn't see a movie. I didn't do it. No, I didn't. Not really.
All right, have fun this weekend.
I'm gonna try to have fun this weekend. I postponed
I always
a
go
trip,
to the
so-
movies when things are tough in real life.
Yeah.
Good idea. I go when it's 28 degrees.
That
right.
too.
Well, let's wind this up so we can all go to the movies. All right. So,
Do we think it's Friday just because you're going away, Tina?
I'm not going away
We're all-
anymore. I canceled, and I
We're all
think it's. But I
talking
think
about
it's
the
Friday
weekend.
because we're doing the show.
Exactly.
I know.
Yeah, this is back. Actually, we started when we first started doing this show. We started on Tuesdays, so
That's
we haven't
right.
done
Oh, wow,
Tuesdays
that's
in quite a long time, and we're back to a one single Tuesday, I think. But we'll see. Okay, I'd like to thank Ustream. We use Ustream to stream live and record G3 as well as the Gilmore Gang every single week that we do that. And I'd like to thank NewTek and their TriCaster. It is you can see a little bit of it here. You see also I've got other keyboards and stuff laying on it, but it lights up and it's fun and it's got lots of buttons and I use only a few of them. But and you know what? I'm not showing it. So here I am and I'm showing everything, but I was on the wrong screen. So I've got this other keyboard that's on top, but anyway, I love it. I love the TriCaster. And thank you, NewTek. Thank you to you all. Thank you, Rebecca Woodcock, Hallie Suit Tucker, Francine Hardaway, Mary Hodder. Thank you for being here. And let's get our logo up and we'll say bye-bye.
Bye.